Today we are exploring worlds where the hum of steam engines fills the air, where inventors push the limits of possibility with clockwork creations, and where airships glide through smoky skies. This is steampunk, a genre that blends the elegance of the Victorian era with the grit of industrial innovation. But what does steampunk mean as a subgenre besides the visuals, the gadgets and goggles? And what is it trying to say?
Hey guys, today we're going over the world of steampunk. I want to explore the elements that make this subgenre, from world building to themes, and the idea here is to break down what makes steampunk tick, pun intended. We are going to explore its key components, uncover what makes it so compelling, and show you how to use its unique style to create great stories and worlds. So grab your goggles, fire up the engines, and let's get to it.
Alright, let's start with the basics. What is steampunk? At its heart, steampunk is all about creating a world where steam power is the driving force behind technology. Think a place where the Industrial Revolution didn't stop. It just kept going, fueled by steam engines instead of electricity. Well, try to ignore the horrifying environmental consequences of it for the sake of immersion. Now throw in the fashion of the Victorian era, corsets, top hats and goggles, but with a twist. Instead of just people in fancy dresses, you've got clockwork arms, steam-powered gadgets, and airships soaring above the streets. It's a unique blend of history, technology and imagination. Think of the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's a good example in cinema of how steampunk blends Victorian fashion with cutting-edge tech, at least for the time. You've got Victorian-era characters, Sherlock Holmes, Mina Harker and Captain Nemo, but they're wielding all kinds of steam-powered technology, from mechanical monsters to airships, making for an action-packed adventure.
Now, steampunk is not exactly just Victorian science fiction. It's this interesting mashup of retrofuturism, adventure, and a whole lot of what-if scenarios. With this subgenre, you imagine a different version of the world, where technology went down a different path. It's like a what if we kept steam power as the primary source of energy. You can kind of see how this creates a unique kind of wonder, almost like nostalgia for a past that never existed. This is not particularly exclusive of steampunk as a subgenre though. If you think about Lord of the Rings or A Song of Ice and Fire, for example, they also use old medieval Europe as a basis for the setting and evolve it in a way that fits their world building and plot requirements with the fantastical elements. And steampunk does pretty much the same thing, but with the Victorian era and Industrial Revolution instead of medieval Europe, if you think about it.
Another good example is Steam Boy, an animated film set in an alternate version of Victorian London where steam technology has progressed to the point of creating super-powered machines. The film is a visual feast of giant mechanical suits, enormous steam-powered contraptions, and of course an entire city built around this technology. It really shows the wonder that comes with a world where steam is the king of innovation.
While steampunk has this gorgeous nostalgic look and feel, it's also a genre really focused on rebellion. A lot of the steampunk stories, they take aim at things like class systems, imperialism, and unchecked ambition. And it makes sense if you think about the source period. England was expanding their empire and also really focusing technological development and invention. It's kind of like the genre's way of saying, look at what happens when we don't keep our ambitions in check. And it's all wrapped up in the beautiful, opulent trappings of the Victorian age. So while it might seem all about the elegance and airships, it's also making some serious points about the darker sides of progress.
A great steampunk film that dives into this rebellion is Brazil, though it's a bit more dystopian. It's full of that steampunk vibe. The movie is set in a bureaucratic, over-industrialized world where people are treated like cogs in the machine. It critiques the overwhelming control of technology and government, all while maintaining that dark, whimsical steampunk aesthetic with its giant machines and quirky inventions. It's like the genre's way of showing what can happen when technology is misused. Now, let's go over some of the must-haves when it comes to steampunk. Let's start with the visuals because, let's be honest, they're what first draw a lot of people to steampunk. It's rooted in the architecture, clothing and design of the Victorian era, but it takes all of that and dials it up to 11. Elegant dresses with intricate lacework, but now they've got hidden compartments for weapons or gadgets. Think top hats, but with built-in telescopes or tiny mechanical gadgets ticking away inside.
It's about taking the refinement and sophistication of Victorian culture and fusing it with the wild experimental vibe of an alternate industrial revolution. The world itself feels like stepping into a living, breathing machine. Think of towering buildings made of iron and glass, streets lit by gas lamps that hiss with steam, and laboratories packed with giant gears, tubes, and steam vents puffing out clouds of smoke.
A good example is the film Sherlock Holmes. The gritty streets of Victorian London are brought to life with an industrial edge. There is machinery everywhere, steam clouds floating through the air, and even the crime-solving tech feels like a blend of old and futuristic. It's that solid mix of sophistication and mechanical madness that makes steampunk so captivating. Steampunk worlds are built on the magic of steam-powered technology. In these settings, steam powers everything, from massive zeppelins floating majestically through the skies to mechanical automatons clanking through cobblestone streets. It's all about asking those what-if questions. The possibilities are endless. And that's what makes steampunk so exciting. It's innovation with a vintage twist.
One of the coolest things about steampunk tech, it's how it balances practicality with like a sense of whimsy. On one hand, it's functional, designed to solve real-world problems in creative ways. On the other hand, it's kind of quirky and full of character, like brass gadgets with unnecessary gears, or automaton with a monocle for no reason other than the aesthetics. And let's be real, who wouldn't want to tinker with a steam-powered gadget? It's the kind of tech that makes you want to roll up your sleeves, grab a wrench, and dive into the workshop, even if it sometimes feels impractical.
Most steampunk stories take us back to the 19th century. It's a reimagined world where science and society took a completely different path. Instead of electricity leading the charge, steam remains king. Picture sprawling cities powered by gigantic steam engines, with bustling streets full of inventors, mechanics, and adventurers. It's a world where innovation feels tangible, gears turning, pistons pumping, and steam hissing.
Steampunk explores a reality where humanity's potential unfolded in strange and fascinating ways. And while originally a lot of steampunk leans heavily into Victorian England, the foggy streets of London, the aristocrats in waistcoats, it doesn't have to stop there. You can imagine what a steam-powered world would look like in other cultures.
What about a Japanese steampunk empire with clockwork samurai and steam-fueled rickshaws? Or an African steampunk kingdom blending tribal aesthetics with intricate brass machinery and airships that ride the desert winds? The genre thrives when it steps outside of its comfort zone and brings a fresh perspective to the table. After all, steam technology might power the world, but every culture would shape it in its own unique way. At its core, a lot of steampunk stories are about rebellion. It's inventors challenging the status quo, workers rising up against oppressive industrial systems, and underdogs using ingenuity to take on powerful forces. There's always this tension between tradition and progress, between the old ways of doing things and the unstoppable march of innovation. And that's what makes it so relatable. It's not just about what we build, but about who gets to control it and at what cost. Let's take a look at the Mortal Engine. It's a perfect steampunk story drenched in rebellion and progress. You've got these massive steam-powered cities on wheels, literally devouring smaller towns to survive. It's industrialization taken to its most extreme. The rebels are the heart of the story, using wit, resourcefulness, and sometimes outdated tech to take on this monstrous system. It's a great example of how steampunk can blend epic visuals with strong themes. Alright, so you want to build your own steampunk world. Where do you start? Let's talk steam tech. Because in a steampunk world, it's the engine that drives everything. Literally, the first thing to figure out is how advanced your steam technology is. Is it grounded and practical, like trains, factories, and machinery that feel like they could have existed in the 19th century? Or do you want to push the boundaries and imagine a world where steam can do almost anything, like powering intricate computers, steam mix, or even entire floating cities? Deciding how far you want to take it is key, because it sets the tone for your world.
Are you creating something greedy and realistic, or wild and fantastical? Defining the boundaries of your technology in the setting is particularly important for steampunk, because the subgenre is about ingenuity and innovation. When the rules of what the tech can and cannot do are clear, it makes it exciting when a character finds an ingenious way to overcome a challenge by using it.
Your steam tech should be a storytelling tool. If your tech is grounded, your world might focus on social struggles like factory workers rising up against oppressive industrialists. On the flip side, hyper-advanced STEAM tech could drive stories about mad inventors, global exploration, or even a race to harness the next big breakthrough. For example, think of a steampunk submarine capable of diving to previously unreachable depths. What mysteries could it uncover? It makes me think of 20,000 Leagues Under the Seas by Jules Verne. The level of steam tech you choose can shape your plot, but also give your world a unique flavor. Let's talk about who's calling the shots in your steampunk world. A lot of steampunk stories lean into the classic divide between the wealthy aristocrats and the struggling workers. You've got the upper class living in luxury, throwing extravagant parties in their airship mansions, while the inventors, factory workers, and street-level tinkerers are down below, hustling just to survive.
The dynamic sets up natural tension, workers rebelling against the elite, or inventors finding clever ways to rise above their station. It's a great way to reflect on your wish, issues, privilege, and exploitation, while keeping the story grounded in the steam-powered aesthetic. But here's the fun part. You don't have to stick to the same old structure. What if your steampunk world flips the script, for example? Maybe the inventors are the elite, holding the power because their inventions drive society forward, and maybe the aristocrats now scramble to stay relevant.
Or, how about a society where automatons form the underclass, doing all the labor while humans focus on art and invention? That setup could lead to some interesting conflicts, like automatons gaining sentience and demanding rights. The beauty of steampunk is that it gives you the freedom to play with these power dynamics in unexpected ways. When we think of steampunk, it's easy to picture the foggy streets of Victorian London, with gas lamps glowing and gears turning. But why stop there? The world is full of rich cultures that can breathe fresh life into the genre. Imagine an Indian steampunk empire with massive steam-powered elephants and inventors designing intricate brass machinery inspired by traditional patterns, a bit like Kaladesh in Magic the Gathering. Steampunk out of its comfort zone can make your world stand out and feel truly unique. Think of the possibilities. Desert airship ports where merchants haggle over mechanical parts, or jungle cities where ancient temples are fused with steam tech, their gears churning to unlock hidden mysteries. Even the Wild West can go steampunk, with steam-fueled trains racing through dusty landscapes and bandits wielding clockwork weapons. Every great steampunk story needs conflict, and it often comes down to a clash of ideologies. Is your world grappling with progress versus tradition, where inventors and visionaries clash with those clinging to the old ways? Or maybe the danger lies in unchecked innovation, with technology spiraling out of control and threatening the balance of society. Then there's the classic steampunk staple, a class revolution where the industrial elite face rebellion from the inventors they exploit. To create an immersive steampunk atmosphere, weave in mundane everyday details that feel authentic to the Victorian Age and Industrial Revolution. Think about the food your characters eat, meals of meat pies or cheap bread for the working class, contrasted with lavish banquets of roast beef and wine for the elite. Costumes can ground your world too. Soot-streaked aprons and patched trousers for factory workers, or tailored waistcoats, corsets, and top hats for the upper class, with perhaps a brass goggle twist to reflect your steampunk flair. But don't stop at aesthetics, dive into the mindset of the era, reflect the rigid social hierarchies, the obsession with propriety, and the belief in the inevitability of progress. Maybe an inventor dreaming of endless possibilities, or a worker bitterly watching the march of machines take their job.
One of the tension is it's the ideological battles that gives your world stakes and themes. These themes can really resonate because class wars and the cost of ambition and technological progress are still very present these days. Just look at late-stage capitalism and its consequences, and the discourse around billionaires, and obviously climate change, right?
Steampunk is a genre bursting with creativity, depth, and storytelling potential. The reimagined Victorian aesthetics bring the visuals, and its themes of rebellion and progress bring the depth. Steampunk gives us a canvas to blend imagination with commentary on the human condition. The brass and gears bring flavor to interesting explorations about the cost of ambition and technological progress, how innovation can still be used as an exploitation tool and to reinforce societal structures and the fear and excitement of progress.
So that's it for the video today. I really like steampunk, and I'm trying to cook a steampunk story at the moment. So this is particularly fun for me. Let me know in the comments what you like about this subgenre and some examples I might have missed with the research for this video. And if you're building a steampunk world, share your ideas in the comments as well. And yeah, that's it. I see you in the next one.
Come join our Tavern discussion of fantasy storytelling and world building here at Loregeist. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Thanks for watching, and may your tales be ever epic.